Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Rams Brothers, the pod. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined by the other host of this show, Nick. And Nick, we were at the game, Rams and Lions. It was a hell of a time. How are you?
I'm great. It was great having you here this weekend. I'm glad I got to host you. A really fun time at the game. Made a lot of cool pals with the people behind us and in front of us. It's a great community. The Ramley and Lions fans are just genuinely nice people. They're not there to really hurt anybody. They just wanted to see Stafford play well and maybe squeak out a win. But McVay and the Rams and Stafford had other plans. It was a great time. I loved SoFi.
I have to say, Lions fans were fantastic. They were incredibly respectable. Everyone that we interacted with was super friendly, wanted to have a conversation, wasn't hostile. There was actually a guy behind us, I wish I got his name, that was calling plays right as they were kind of developing. And him and I were kind of looking back and forth at each other like, good call, nice call. It's just a really cool way to interact with fans. And
that was me.
Yeah, that was you. No, that stadium is very much catered to the Rams fan, right? It felt like it was a show for the Rams. It was, a venue, an event that was specifically catered to Rams fans. I enjoyed every second of it. Just coming from the Coliseum, just to being able to see what SoFi Stadium, the show that they're able to put on, the way that they're able to host fans, extremely accommodating. Hardly waited in any lines. We got nachos, we got beer, we had a great time. So yeah, I highly recommend it. If you haven't been to SoFi yet for a game, it's unbelievable. It was my first chance. I know, Nick, you had been there, but yeah, it was awesome that you were able to host me, and my wife came along. We had a hell of a time.
Yeah, no Goff tribute video.
Yeah, so what happened with that?
I don't know. I mean, I really thought they were going to do something, like thank you, Jared, in some way. I mean, you already have the video from when the trade happened. So you could have just played that at the bare minimum. And they didn't. So I thought that was not like uncomfortable way to start. And then blink and it's like 10-0. I mean, we'll get into the breakdown.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we do that, Dean, you want to tell us about our new sponsor?
Let's jump into the new sponsors real quick. Golden Road Brewery. We are working with a new partner and sponsor moving forward. Golden Road Brewery at Golden Road Brew on social. If you haven't seen them, they produce the famous Rams House beer, which is very shotgunnable, I must add. It's easy to drink. It's light. It's enjoyable. So the event that LAFB is putting on the 7th of November is a party bus round trip from Golden Road Brewery to SoFi to watch the Rams and Titans game. The Rams will be in their new modernized jerseys. I think their best look, in my opinion. You will be, and probably in yours too. You will be live with the LAFB crew, broadcasting live from Golden Road Brewery. Then it's time to enjoy the game. So get your tickets. LAFBnetwork.com provides a round trip on the party bus to and from the Golden Road Brewery, beers and drinks on the bus, a 6-month subscription to LAFB, to the network, which gives you exclusive access to special events and premium content, and 25% off all LAFB merch. So that's a pretty good deal. So that's one of our new sponsors. Nick, why don't you transition into our next sponsor?
I think it's only fitting for me, of Nick's Picks fame, to talk about our new betting partner, MyBookie. NBA lock of the season. What is a lock? We know Dean's locks aren't actually locks. A real lock, simply put, is a bet you can't lose. And with MyBookie, you can't lose with the NBA lock of the season. When you bet on either team to score between Dallas Mavericks or the Denver Nuggets this Friday, you win. And everybody knows there's never been a game that has gone scoreless. So you know it's a surefire bet. Place your bet, they score, you win. It's that easy. You get paid Friday, wake up Saturday, throw down on UFC 267. Why not? This weekend, MyBookie is also giving all users a $100 risk-free wager on the light heavyweight champion fight between Blachowicz and Teixeira. I'm going to go with the Polish guy. So don't wait. Head to mybookie.ag now and use promo code LAFB and get in on the NBA lock of the season. That's promo code LAFB. It's a lock. Get your season started with a win. Thank me later. I mean, you guys have been thanking me all season for Nick's picks because everybody knows they've been pretty hot. Bet anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. I'm gonna have an account this weekend. We'll be throwing some money on Rams money line.
Same. And guys, if you get on there and you use that promo code, it just means more awesome stuff from us and more opportunities for us to, just do fun stuff on here and have a good time. So we appreciate everything that you guys do. And if you're betting anyway, why not do it through this way?
Yeah. I mean, one of our next goals financially is to build sets for the two of us. Right now you're looking, there's a boxes behind me. I'm in the process of building a set. No, I'm just kidding. We're putting a bar in the house and it's a friggin' mess behind me. But regardless, yeah, it's for a good cause. So we want to keep putting out content for you guys and we're going to continue to do so. So sign up and let's get betting. So anyway, sequence of events to start the game. Did we miss the Jared Goff and Michael Brockers tribute? I don't think we did. Like you mentioned, I don't think we did. It just didn't happen.
Well, they could have played it like way before the game. We got in there like 20 minutes before it started, though, so I don't think so.
I don't think we missed it. If we did miss it and somebody has a clip of it or somebody saw it, please send it over to us. News broke prior to the game, though, Nick, that was pretty significant in my eyes. I saw it Sunday morning as I was sitting in my hotel room that Jared Goff had a significant foot injury that required surgery after the Super Bowl. It's weird. It's incredible how this news breaks, hours before the game as a reunion between his former team. And I wonder who it was that's been holding on to this news for all this time. Was it Jared Goff's camp? Was it his agent? Who was it? Regardless, I think it had you a little bit in your feels prior to this game starting. I know we talked about it with Ryan at the tailgate a little bit, but wanted you to elaborate on your feeling.
Let me just say this, and I realized a lot of what I like about Goff, just like personally at this game. Obviously, we were sucking back a couple cold beers together. I'm sitting there with my girl, and I'm watching you just getting all stoked about Stafford. You're looking at me, and you're like, "He's a real athlete, not that goof over there, Goff." And I'm just sitting back there, and I'm just talking to my girl, and I'm like, one of the things I really always appreciate about Goff is that he was never a traditional athlete, much like myself. He was always more of like a technique guy, very durable, a lot of heart, a lot of soul out there. And this story with his foot breaking and him playing throughout that entire playoff series and not telling anybody about it. It reminds me of the time, little personal story, when Dean and I were playing football back in the day. And Dean hits me on a pass right across the middle. I get absolutely lit up. Like, couldn't have gotten more lit up. Broke my wrist on the play. We didn't know that during the time. Stayed in the game. Caught 2 touchdowns, game-winning touchdown back of the end zone, courtesy of Dean. And it all just kind of kept coming back to me. And to see the game start 10-0, I was driving Dean crazy because I was essentially rooting for the Lions the entire time. And I know, Rams fans, don't put me on, don't have my head on a stake or anything. I just, I really, I just respected, I respected what they were doing out there. And I loved their wackiness and their goofiness. And as everybody knows, I love Goff. So.
Yeah, I think there's a human element to football that isn't talked about enough. And I think when you go to the games and you get to see it in person, you see the storylines kind of unfold. As we were just kind of talking about in the middle of the game, right? You related to him personally, right? Related to the technique, to the goofiness, to the unorthodox characteristics of a quarterback that I don't know, but wasn't able to take his team over the top, right? And for whatever reason, I'm only able to see the team that wasn't able to get over the top. I saw the team that lost in the Super Bowl led by him. He was the leader of that team. So for whatever reason, I put those two things together at all times. And then I see Stafford come in and I see the offense open up and Cooper Kupp is now the best receiver in the league and just what they're able to do just in general. McVay's overall just happiness with the offense and the progression they made. I just see two completely different storylines, right? So for whatever reason, I just relate more so to Matthew Stafford and the athleticism that he brings and the arm talent, not from a personal level.
No shit.
It's not even that. It's just, it's hard for me to explain. I just feel like that Jared Goff is synonymous with losing the Super Bowl. And I wanted a fresh taste after the digression that I saw in 2019 and in 2020. So here we are today.
It's just two Could it be more different mentalities?
Yeah, I just
From
want to
two,
win. I don't want to
completely
deal with
different people.
I don't want to deal with the goofiness or the unorthodoxness or whatever it is that you want to call it about him. That's not typical of a starting quarterback that wins a Super Bowl. I just didn't want to deal with it any longer. So I understand it's two different outlooks, right? So you were happy. You were happy in the beginning of the game, right? When DeAndre Swift catches a screen pass and houses it for 36 yards.
Yeah, I'm screaming Jared Goff touchdown.
Flexing. I'm amazed, right? I'm amazed at how excited you are to actually see that play happen. But guess who missed the final tackle attempt on that play? Kenny Young, now member of the Denver Broncos. But you actually called it, Nick. I looked back to you on this play. You actually pulled me forward, and you were like, well, it was a blitz. It was an all-out blitz. They came at Goff, and I was like, no. They just rushed 4. It was a screen pass, right? So they allowed pressure to kind of come in there. But as I looked back, it was actually an all-out zero blitz. So Goff did a good job of getting rid of the ball. It was a well-executed screen pass. Obviously, DeAndre Swift was able to make 3 or 4 people miss, and that last person being Kenny Young. But you kind of knew the Rams would be a little bit extra aggressive early on, right? They sent Jalen Ramsey on that blitz, and it bit them in the kneecaps to get started. And then the Rams hardly possessed the ball in the first quarter whatsoever. The Lions went with an onside kick after the touchdown. The Rams weren't prepared for it whatsoever. Hit Troy Reeder in the top of the hand as he was attempting to make a recovery. The Lions recovered, and obviously it was the perfect start for them. It was serendipitous, right as they came into SoFi Stadium and wanted to make a mark and leave an impression on this game. I saw many tweets that Dan Campbell seemingly had a better game plan than Sean McVay did in this game. Maybe in the first quarter, maybe in the first half. No. But throughout the whole game, I would disagree.
I don't think you can say, hey, after we scored touchdown, let's fluke it and kick an onside kick and then recover. Like, the chances of that are so, like, you're gambling, you're like tripling down on a touchdown drive. Like, that's not a good game plan. We can't beat these guys any other way. Right. So we might as well roll the dice. And that's what they kept doing. I think, but still, it's crazy that this team hasn't won a game because the Lions are like, they really are a feisty team. They just, they just can't close.
No, they're tough. They remind me of some of the worst Rams teams in history. Some of those teams that were a little bit grittier, that you felt like were going to start to kind of get over the top. They were in that transition year where you felt like if they could hit on a couple more draft picks the following year, they could bring in a couple skill players, that they would eventually be maybe a mediocre team again. But the Lions are right in that position where they could steal some games, right? They have some players and have a young head coach where they'll probably steal a couple games this season, as they should have already. But they were pesky enough. I mean, they continued to steal possessions. They stole possession with a fake punt. And they were able to tack 3 more points on the board. So all within the first quarter, we witnessed a 60-yard touchdown, a successful onside kick, and then a fake punt from the Lions. They essentially spotted them 10 points in this game. So the first quarter ended 10-3. And then after a 13-3 lead, the Rams offense finally hit the gas. But it's only because they only had that one possession in the first quarter, and it led to a field goal. And in their second possession, they scored a touchdown on an 11-play, 84-yard drive. But it was the pass interference call that Van Jefferson was able to draw on Jacobs, which gave the Rams 32 yards and kickstarted the offense in general. So Stafford also drew the Lions off sides on that drive. If you remember, he was barking at the ref because he wanted a free play. It definitely should have been a free play on that play on 3rd and 5, but it was called a neutral zone infraction. After that, Stafford went 3 of 4 for 24 yards and a touchdown on a perfectly thrown ball to Van Jefferson. I don't know if I could say I could see that ball thrown any better in that situation. It was right at his eyes, right at his face mask. It was very easy to catch that ball, come down with it. Stafford was very, very pleased with what he's seen from Van Jefferson. Had 7 targets in this game. Called him big boy, right? So everybody likes a big body in the red zone. And that's what I feel like I'm getting from Van Jefferson. Obviously, his snap counts were down last year. You're battling for time with Josh Reynolds. But him in that 3rd receiver spot, 11 personnel, he's been about as good as he could be in that role right now. So obviously Stafford loves him. So I like what I've seen from Van Jefferson. Nick, any comments on that drive from the Rams?
After that touchdown drive, I mean, I was like on my feet a little bit. I was like, yeah, Lions, like, let's go Lions. I started to shift. And At no point in this game did I ever think the Rams were going to lose. Really,
Right.
at 0 point. They looked like a real football team where the
Which is
Lions
why
were
you
just
were kind of having fun with the Lions celebrations.
yeah. And I mainly I wanted the Rams to win. If I could have decided how this game would have went, it it would have been very similar to this because I didn't want the Rams to just absolutely annihilate them. And the Lions actually put up a really good fight, and the Rams ended up taking away the win. So I got everything I could have been looking for in that game.
Right.
And yeah, it was an enjoyable experience, especially like at this point. There's not a worry in the world after watching that drive. I'm like, they will like it. It's very easy for them to get down the field, and it wasn't really a slow start. It was just that the Lions controlled time of possession for so long. So this was the first time they didn't actually have a slow start all season, and that boded well.
They didn't have a slow start to start this game, but they were still down 10-0 to start.
So yeah, but I mean, that's outside of the offense's control. I'm talking about the offense having a slow start.
Right. Yeah, the offense didn't have a slow start whatsoever. It was the field goal to start the game. Then they went 11 plays for 84 yards, and then they went 11 plays for 74 yards, drive that was capped off by Cooper Kupp. So, like I said, they didn't have a slow start. They just hardly touched the ball in the first quarter. And then it was 17-16. The Rams took the lead at the half. We went to get nachos and more beer. I was ready to just kind of like settle deep into my seat and enjoy the win, kick the feet up. The Rams were coming in our direction, so I thought we were going to see some touchdowns in our end zone. But I knew that there was no way in hell that McVay was going to blow that perfect 41-0 record when winning at halftime against Dan Campbell's dumpster fire. But there was a possibility. It wasn't like it was never going to happen. I mean, the Lions had played some pretty decent football in that first half. It just felt like I remember looking back at you and saying, the Lions pitched a perfect game in the first half, right? They got the onside kick. You got the fake punt. You got the long touchdown, and you're still losing by a point. So it's going to be really difficult for them to battle out in the second half. But they did get the ball to start the game in the second half. But again, it's a difficult road to climb when you don't have that much personnel on offense, when DeAndre Swift is really your only weapon, when Hawkins Smith is limited with injury. There's only so much you could do. You got to depend on players that aren't going to win you games, right? Mistakes are going to be made. Somebody's going to miss a block. Goff's going to get hit. It's just inevitable at that time. But the Lions, I think their biggest issue, and again, it kind of goes back to personnel, they weren't able to punch the ball into the red zone whatsoever. Once they were in the red zone, after that DeAndre Swift touchdown reception, they were 0 of 5 in the red zone just in general. So they actually had the ball the most in the second half, 18 and a half total minutes over 4 possessions that resulted in only 3 points. They turned the ball over on 3 of those 4 possessions, though, in the second half. So again, it's red zone inefficiency. Play calling down the stretch was shaky. But what they tried to do in this game, Nick, and I know you know too well, they just tried to keep the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands. And when he does have it in his hands, you can't let him score that fast. But it's all about trying to outpossess the other team, right? It was really kind of like this simple game plan for a trap game, right? It was don't make the big mistake late, try to outpossess the other team, try to hold on to the ball as long as you can, and then score when you get in the red zone. Their biggest mistake was they were highly penalized. They were penalized 8 times for 77 yards. They only completed 40% of third downs. And that's just how bad teams kind of find a way to lose. You could win the time of possession battle by 5 minutes and still lose if you lose the turnover battle and lose on third down. So it's just difficult. You could outpossess, but you're just not going to get the job done if you lose those 2 things. So I don't know. What were some of your other takeaways, Nick? I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on just Matthew Stafford in general in this game.
Well, I'm going to talk about Goff real fast.
Go ahead.
He threw those 2 interceptions, right? The one was caught by the receiver and then was bobbled into the defender's hand. The other one was just he was getting hit big time by Donald. So I liked everything I saw from the Rams offense, and it was a feast when they had the ball. They were just able, like it was fast. It was action packed. They love that Patriots pick play in
Yeah,
the
they
end
do.
zone.
Yeah, they
They
do.
like, and no one's ever going to call it anymore. So it's like, why not use this? And they got Kupp on one of those, and they even did a little what's it called? Wood's little almost a jet sweep. I guess it was
Yeah,
kind of like a pitch.
it's like one of those tap passes. It's
Yeah.
registered.
So like, I love the red zone efficiency that I saw from this team.
Yeah, they
That's
were
something
great in this game.
that's
Yep.
always been something that Goff and McVay together struggled. And then just to see Goff alone struggling on it and McVay kind of capitalizing on it, like, you can't, as a big a fan of Jared Goff as I am, you can't help but see the upgrade.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a fact. I mean, you can go back and look at a couple of possessions in this game. Like, they didn't come out in the second half firing whatsoever. They punted on their first possession. There are some plays you interchange Goff for Stafford. You never know what you would get. But in general, it's a very clear and obvious upgrade. The Lions' first drive in the second half took up 6.5 minutes, kind of more so on, playing on the whole possession battle in this game, and ended on a terrible 4th-and-1 call to DeAndre Swift. So that was another situation, Nick, where you and I were looking at each other where they should have taken the points in that situation, because you know what the Rams did to follow up that drive? They went 5 plays for 36 yards and turned the ball over on downs on Detroit's 46-yard line. So after that turnover on downs, the Lions actually went ahead and took a lead 19-17 after Goff completed a 37-yard pass to Khalif Raymond, which took the Lions all the way down to the Rams' 13-yard line. But that was their last points of the game. And that was their last big play of the game. But again, Nick, you hear a guy like Khalif Raymond, he's a guy off the practice squad, right? Somebody that has not played a lot of football. Somebody that Jared Goff this year has kind of introduced to the league. And he's going to be the guy that's, he's targeting late in the game. You don't really have a shot in that situation, especially when you're going up against 2 of the 5 best defensive players in the entire league. Somebody's going to force a mistake. They're going to come up with a better game plan. They're going to get the pressure necessary, and, they're going to keep you out of the end zone. And it's kind of the MO of what Raheem Morris's defense has been able to do to lesser teams so far this year. Obviously, Arizona was a different story, but keeping teams out of the end zone, allowing them to kick field goals and own the time of possession battle is okay if you're still not turning the ball over, and you're still forcing other teams to turn the ball over more 2 or 3 times. So it puts them in a really good situation. They completely own that second half, though, just defensively. Or they only allowed 3 points. You could tell it felt like the Lions controlled the game, right? Controlled the ball a lot in that second half, but they just weren't putting any points on the board. And it had to be frustrating for Lions fans who felt like they were just knocking on the door all day and weren't able to kind of punch the ball into the end zone.
It's funny, the Lions fans that we were talking to behind us, like, it felt like everybody in that stadium knew. I kept looking back. I was like, hey, great play. You be a momentum. You got it. And they would just look at me like,
yeah, just wait.
like, just wait. This will happen.
It's coming.
Lions fans are definitely some of my favorite fans, just in general. I know we kind of touched on that already, but they were just so great.
Yeah, and they have a really good perspective, right? It doesn't feel like it's like the world ending when their team loses. They're kind of used to it, but they're there to enjoy the show. They're there for the long haul. They know that they'll be there in 30 years, 40 years when their team finally wins a Super Bowl, and it's going to be that sweet. And we'll be there to kind of root them on as well. But yeah, no, it's a good scene when fans are able to interact. I didn't see a single fight. I didn't hear a single argument. There was nothing like that. So no hostility. I think there was more hostility between you and I than there were with Rams and Lions fans in general.
The only other hostility was like 4 rows behind us. There was some freaking Raiders fan that was like, sit down. And I was like, I was like, of course it's a Raiders fan.
Of course it's a Raiders fan. And you were wearing a Lakers jersey, and he was probably a huge Lakers fan. So
right, I was wearing a LeBron jersey because I just wanted both teams to win, to have fun.
What the are you doing there if you're a Raiders fan? What are you doing in that game? Didn't the Raiders play at the same time?
Yeah.
Weren't the Raiders playing the Eagles at the same time? That's even weirder.
Yeah.
Very strange. Yeah, get out of here. Get out of the stadium. Some other takeaways in this game. Matthew Stafford threw his 299th touchdown pass to Van Jefferson, and then his 300th and his 301st to Cooper Kupp on the same day that Tom Brady throws his 600th league-leading career touchdown pass.
Gulp.
Yeah, I know. It puts him 12th, surpassing John Elway, who finished with 300 career total, and behind Fran Tarkenton, who finished with 342. So, you give him the rest of this year, you give him next year, he could potentially catch Fran Tarkenton. But I'm not sure if he's ever going to catch guys like Dan Marino or Phillip Rivers or Aaron Rodgers. Those are the 6, 7, 8 guys who all ended with 400-plus touchdowns. So, regardless, 12th, 13th in history, I think that puts you in an incredible class of quarterbacks. And, it could potentially, the way he finishes out his career, he could have Sean McVay to thank for getting him potentially to the Hall of Fame. So I don't know. I mean, it depends how the next 3 years. Yeah, right. How the next 3 years will progress is going to be determinant on, this team, how they keep it together. But Matthew Stafford's Hall of Fame career will also be dependent on how he plays over the next 3 years. So will certainly be interesting to watch. I talked about the touchdown pass that he threw to Van Jefferson. The other pass that he made to Cooper Kupp, the 59-yard touchdown pass in the second, or it wasn't a touchdown pass, just straight down the left sideline. 2 of the better throws I've seen him make throughout the entire season. Just has an unbelievable arm. It's even better in person. When you can see the progression of a play, Cooper Kupp kind of breaking free in space. You can see Stafford's head turn and then find him on the left. It's beautiful to see in person. It's poetry in motion. And then Van Jefferson, how about the progression he's made? He's currently at 33 targets, 21 receptions, and 304 yards and 3 touchdowns. Last year, we talked about, obviously, his snap counts were down. He was battling time with Josh Reynolds. But compared to last year's numbers, 31 targets, 19 receptions, 220 yards, and 1 single touchdown. I believe that first touchdown, that come in the Packers game. It was his first NFL touchdown, I believe, was the divisional round.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think he had one in the Tampa Bay game.
Maybe he did. And I didn't see the playoff touchdown in his statistics. That could be true. You're probably right about that, actually, now that you say that. How about this on Cooper Kupp real quick? I think, can you just make a unique expression to all of these stats that I read off on Cooper Kupp? Can you just give me that favor, please?
And then for the audio listeners, I'll describe the face.
Okay, sounds good. Cooper Kupp, league leader in catches of 20-plus yards with 14.
Oh.
He's the first player in the Super Bowl era with 800 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns in his team's first 7 games of the season.
Special things.
He leads the league in targets, receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. He's also the odds-on favorite to lead the league in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns when the season ends. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
He has more receiving yards than the entire wide receiver corps for the Falcons, the Saints, and the Bears. How about this one?
Saints doesn't fit in there, but Falcons and Bears, absolutely.
No Michael Thomas. No top receiver. He's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's single-season receiving yards record of 1,964.
Was that the season they went to the playoffs and played the Cowboys?
I believe so. Yeah, they went to the divisional round.
Let's hope the Rams get further than that.
Or was that the wild card round? Right. But that was full regular season stats. He also has the most fantasy points by a wide receiver through the first 7 games of a season all time. If Jamar Chase, current wide receiver 3 in fantasy football, caught an additional touchdown in every single one of the games he's played in this year, he still wouldn't have as many points as Cooper Kupp has in fantasy. So what Cooper Kupp is doing has never been seen before in the history of the NFL. I don't even know what to say. Did you ever think we would be here saying this about Cooper Kupp?
Not at all. If anything, I would have thought potentially Robert Woods. Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford clearly have a very special connection, and it's something that's just amazing to watch, especially in person. I mean, some of those catches, I I'm just watching the play develop. I'm like, Kupp is open. Kupp is always open.
Yep.
Like, it's just, if Kupp was there in that 2018 Super Bowl, I'll stop saying this, but the Patriots are really,
it's true.
The Patriots are really good at taking your best thing away from you, and they took away the run game in that game. And if you would have had Kupp available in that game, you probably would have had a completely different situation.
Well, one of the things I think Belichick talked about after that game was over, prior to the game, was the fact that he didn't have to game plan for Cooper Kupp. Right? Like it's like not having a game plan for Rob Gronkowski in his prime. At this point, like he's doing things, like you said, you can see, like, you explained it really well. He's just, whenever you watch the play develop, he's wide open. I don't know if it's the mismatch. I don't know if it's the fact that McVay knows exactly where to put him on the field. I don't know if it's Stafford has the ability to do that, or if it's just Cooper Kupp's ability to just run routes to the best of his ability. Right? He's one of the best route runners in the whole league. They develop their own routes.
I'm not sure if he he's not every time. Obviously, he's not the first lead or read, but it feels like he kind of is developing. Like, okay, it's going to be like Kupp is going to be catching this ball, and if he doesn't, then something else, like they were double teaming him, or there was like a different. It's just like he's just like the guy now.
Yeah, he's always an option, right? If he's not your first read, the cool thing about this offense is when you have time in the pocket, when your offensive line is playing as well as it is, and they're as healthy as they are, you can go through your entire progressions, right? 1, 2, and 3. It's only 11 personnel right now, really. So you're going through a progression of 3 receivers, right? Higbee, for the most part, has been in blocking. So if you go from Cooper Kupp, you scan the field, the Woods, Jefferson, right? They're in the second level. You can go right back to Kupp on your 4th read, and all of a sudden you have a first down on 3rd and 6. So for whatever reason, he knows how to keep his eyes on the quarterback. He knows how to run every single route in the book. He has developed his own routes, and he has a connection. He's developed a connection in 7 games with Matthew Stafford that quarterbacks and receivers don't develop in 5 to 10 years of playing together. It's the way that they did this as quickly as they did. And obviously, Robert Woods is left out a little bit, and Van Jefferson's getting a little bit of the share, but it doesn't really matter, right? There's only one football that has to go around, and you only have to get one win at the end of the day. So it's just really great coming from a receiver who, we felt like deserved this a couple of years ago, right? He had the chance to be one of the best top 3 slot receivers in all of football before a couple of injuries, right? So now he's back, he's healthy, and he's got one of the best quarterbacks in the whole league, and he's showing what he could do. So it's great to see as a fan. So what else? Anything else? Cooper Kupp, Stafford?
I just love I love everything that I'm seeing. I feel like I'm not stoked enough on the fact that our record is what? We're 6-1.
Yeah,
we're 6-1. We're playing the Texans next week. I don't think Tyrod Taylor's back yet, so there's nothing really to be worried about. Game plan ahead for the Titans game. And yeah, I mean, like, it's just, and maybe it goes back to 2018 and that Super Bowl loss, but it now feels like this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to win these games. We're supposed to be in the Super Bowl talk. It's what the offseason did. It put us in the best position to be somewhere where we are, and we're going to be not satisfied with that until a Super Bowl has been won, or until the point where it's just a complete rebuild, and then we're back to being Jeff Fisher Rams fans, where we're essentially Lions fans, right? Yeah. Where it's just we're happy to see trick plays and beat like a tough divisional team every now and then, and like that's kind of all you can really root for.
I can't do that again. I was never happy with that. I was never satisfied with that. It was, in the end of the day, it was hard to watch, right? Because you would get off to a 17-3 lead, and then you would blow it after the first half.
Well, I just had way less cares in the world back then. I'm in college on Sunday watching Jeff Fisher Rams illegally on my computer, and it's just like, oh, this is nice. I got the Rams game on in the background. Case Keenum's throwing an interception. Like, things are good. Like there were no expectations.
Well,
Life
I think
was,
that's kind of the thing with the Lions, right? When it's when they finally get to the Super Bowl, right? Could you imagine the stress, the emotion that's tied to that, the weight, the angst? Oh my God, I wouldn't be able to eat for weeks leading up to that game if I were a Lions fan, because you're only going to get one shot, and if you go back, it might not be for another 80 years, right? It's terrifying, the fear of an NFL fan, because all you want to do at the end of the day is see your team win. So I agree, you should be incredibly stoked with what you're seeing. I'll talk a little bit more about why you should be incredibly stoked. The Rams are back to being leaders in the 11 personnel department. So it's actually really cool for the 11 personnel podcast, because now the Rams are back to that 11 personnel identity. So they could have that name comfortably and have no issues with that. But now running out of 11 personnel, 86% of snaps overall. The next closest is Washington at 79%. 12 personnel is all the way down to 14%, which is on the bottom half of the league average. They've run out of 11 personnel, 94% on third down plays, also the outright leader in that category. They also have the third highest success rate out of 11 personnel this season, behind Kansas City and Tampa Bay. So it's not a huge jump from earlier this season, where they ran 12 personnel, 16% of snaps. The Munt injury, though, gives McVay kind of all the right that he needs to only leave one tight end on the field, especially if he doesn't feel confident in Jacob Harris or Kendall Blanton or Hopkins. Their ability to contribute to the offensive line is obviously not there in their opinion so far. It's one thing to ask these young tight ends to contribute as a pass catcher like Jacob Harris could, but it's another to ask them to come in and run block and pass block. And there's a reason Jacob Harris was a 7th-round pick. He was a converted receiver to tight end. You didn't expect or ask much of him. And then Bryson Hopkins is a flat-out bust. He was completely inactive on Sunday, and obviously Johnny Munt's dealing with the injury. So it makes sense. You have one tight end that you trust to block and to catch passes, both in the run game and the pass game, and you're rolling him out on as many snaps as you can. It's Tyler Higbee. He's been around for the past 6 years. So there's a confidence in that player. And there's a confidence in that personnel group. Compared to last year, Nick, 65% of snaps out of 11 personnel, 29% out of 12 personnel, and 5% out of 13 personnel. So McVay also felt like that combination of Higbee, Everett, and Munt last year was plenty serviceable, and they all deserve snaps in some capacity, which was true. But now we're back to 11 personnel, and it's strictly because Munt is hurt. But at the same time,
it's not strictly because Munt is hurt.
Well, they still sprinkled in some 12 personnel before Munt got hurt. I'm just saying they're doing a little bit less of it now that Munt is hurt. But it's primarily 11 personnel. It's primarily Tyler Higbee.
Which, I mean, like, I think he's the only guy that can step up and rise to the occasion. Like, as far as, like, talented tight ends that can, like, catch and make a big play goes on our team. You don't really see, like, nothing really out of Munt was eye-opening, and Everett kind of was somewhat that guy every now and then, but he's gone. So,
yeah. Well, here's the thing with their success out of 11 personnel this year. You could have 12 personnel. You could run out of that with Gerald Everett on the field and run a jet sweep and score a touchdown against the Eagles or whatever game that was. But until he is called for a false start or a hold, or he misses a block that blows up a play, he doesn't necessarily get on your nerves. But you look at it in more detail now. 11 personnel, like they went back to it, and they're third in total points in the entire league behind Tampa and Arizona, and they're third in total yards per game behind Tampa and Vegas. So it's working, right? It's where they're seeing their primary success from. So I think he did, in fact, if McVay really did, in fact, want to go back to 11 personnel, then why are you drafting Tutu Atwell in the 2nd round and signing Deshaun Jackson? Because all I saw on Sunday, Nick, and correct me if I'm wrong, was Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Van Jefferson and Tyler Higbee as the primary pass catchers. I didn't see anybody else. Deshaun Jackson going back to it, 4 snaps and a punt return. Tutu Atwell had 1 snap. So I guess if you don't need those weapons in certain games, you can keep them fresh on the bench. But, I don't know. You're seeing success out of 11 personnel. So why do you need to mix those guys in if you don't have to?
Fresh on the bench, I don't really know. Like, I understand what you're saying.
Oxymoron.
Yeah. Like, this was another one of my big concerns about the Rams, where it's like, why don't we get guys that, like, for positions that we need, like
inside
more
linebacker.
Yeah, or more just stronger offensive linemen. Offseason, that's what I was saying. The offensive line has actually been stepping up
Yeah,
big
they've
time.
been awesome.
Yeah. But like, there's only one football, and if these guys aren't even getting snaps, then like, why did Tutu Atwell has to be returning punts like yesterday?
Yeah.
And if he's not ready, then like, I don't know. I just kind of hate that pick.
Tutu Atwell's got to be returning punts, kicks in all forms until he makes catastrophic mistake after catastrophic mistake because you drafted him to do that.
I also like it starts to worry me when it's like, okay, who's on a contract year next? You know, like who can we not afford to keep following this year? And if we start losing some of these guys, like I know Woods is potentially on his way out. Like
Well,
I don't know how comfortable I am with everybody else stepping up, like with who we have in the room. So
Woods is signed. I guess people just think he's going to be the odd man out after this season because the way the Rams have done business. But Deshaun Jackson's on a 1-year deal filled with incentives that he may or may not get to. I mean, could you imagine Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, and Van Jefferson as your 3 primary receivers? Because right now I could not. I would be very terrified if we were running 11 personnel and Tutu Atwell was one of those 3 guys. I don't think Matthew Stafford would be very happy with that at all. So we'll have to see how that progresses. But again, to your point, Nick, positions where you could use some help, inside linebacker, potentially at punt returner, kick returner. They brought in a kick returner last year in Raymond Calais. It wouldn't hurt to do something like that again this year. So let's transition over to what happened with Kenny Young, because Kenny Young was traded. Kenny Young in a 2024 7th-round pick was traded to Denver for a 2024 6th-round pick. I don't think that's enough whatsoever. Vic Fangio was interested in Micah Kiza earlier this season. They were probably interested in Kenny Young as well. There was, it's tough to bring somebody in to that role and just onboard them right away. So I feel like you could have had the asking price a little bit steeper than that. But just to give up a starter is just really confusing because it's a position where there's a lot of unknown right now. And it's a position where you could have potentially spent a higher draft pick. So I don't know, Nick, what are your thoughts?
I think it was more of his salary money dump than anything else. And I think that's something that us as fans don't really take into consideration when you look at something like this. And I'm sure they're going to enjoy those picks. Yeah, I mean, there probably just wasn't a higher asking price for him. So I understand it. The defense does still worry me. We haven't really talked about it much.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting with Kenny Young.
It's also just it's structured entirely on the drive down the field and then let's hold you. And then if they can't hold you like they did with that, they didn't do with Arizona, then it's going to be a really shaky game.
Well, is Kenny Young part of that problem? Right? I think that's a question to ask. Is he not have good enough control amongst the linebacker group? Right? Is he not a voice that's helping progress that group in general? I think there's questions about Kenny Young that will go unanswered, although many thought he was going to be the guy, right? He was the guy in the offseason who made great strides, right? He, came from the Marcus Peters trade, and he was, plenty serviceable. Obviously the best inside linebacker on the team as he was a starter, but it's a really interesting situation because he's not going to be a guy that like you said, with some of the receivers, Nick, he's not coming back next year. They're not signing into a new contract. They never pay linebackers. They draft and they develop linebackers. They never, ever, ever pay linebackers. So for whatever reason that is, that's why they're going to have to lean on Ernest Jones. They're going to have to lean on Troy Reeder. Although those guys may not be the answer, you have to draft, develop, and see what those guys are. Kenny Young had to have been on the trade block or people were calling about or inquiring about Kenny Young earlier in the season if they just went ahead and traded him after 7 weeks. Because they didn't just decide to trade him after the Lions game, right? So it was obviously a position where they felt like somebody with Ernest Jones and Troy Reeder there, who's had a ton of experience in this defense, they probably feel like it's kind of like a plug and play. You're going to save the money, like you mentioned, Nick. They're going to save $1.4 million. They also restructured Rob Havenstein's contract. So they saved $3.6 million in that process as well. So overall, between those two players, $5 million in total in savings for this year. So again, it could be financially related, but it could also be because they like to draft and develop linebackers, bring them in cheap, and see who can come in and be the next guy. Kenny Young was the 35th best inside linebacker this year, according to PFF. So I wasn't blown away by what I saw with him this year. I mean, he's a great athlete. I didn't think he was a great run defender. I thought he was pretty good in coverage. But again, it's a replaceable piece. I mean, if there was one player that you had to replace on the entire defense, who would it be?
Kenny Young.
You didn't have to say Kenny Young. But after that whole tandem, I'm sure you were just exhausted by me. So you said Kenny Young by default.
No, I mean, I actually don't know if there's anybody I would want to take out.
Right. No, he's not an unlikable player. But again,
my problem with the defense comes from how it's run and less so who's on the field. Right. I still don't really love the whole, like, how they use Ramsey. But I mean, it worked in the end.
Ramsey
it's just
Ramsey.
It's home run hits, It's like we're daring you to throw the ball, so one of our guys can make a huge play.
Yeah. Well, that's why teams like Kansas City won the Super Bowl. Home run plays. Home run plays defensively, home run plays with superstars on your offense. Those are the guys that make the plays in the playoffs and take you to the next game. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where you want to kind of look at it from a human perspective with Kenny Young, because he was a good dude and he was definitely very likable in the locker room as well. He was not somebody that I just expected to depart in the middle of the season. So when you look at replacing him, it's just not. I don't think the Rams are going to go out and trade for a top linebacker, right? I think they're going to use that $5 million somewhere else, right? Somewhere maybe that Rams fans aren't totally comfortable with at first. But it could be for a second tight end. It could be for a blocking tight end. It could be for, another punt or kick returner. It could be, again, for another inside linebacker that's a guy off the practice squad. I have no idea what they're going to do with that money. But
you know what I would think that they're going to do?
Yeah, what?
Quite honestly, is get another freaking running back. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. But if you were to watch how they, who they bring in, and what kind of players that they bring in, it would be like some sort of skill player that's not necessary.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't stomach that.
No, I mean,
couldn't stomach that.
Are we ready to talk about this Cam Akers thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Because before we get into that, I mean, just prefaced with Sean McVay was like, yeah, it'd be great if Cam Akers came back. Like maybe he comes back in January or something, get some fresh legs. Like, yeah, we would love that. I think the Rams in general kind of have a lack of toughness. Tom Brady kind of talked about this on his podcast a little bit about how the game is now shifted more towards skill players and that whole toughness element of football. Obviously it's still there, but some of these guys are hit them, but don't hit them too hard is kind of what you're taught now, which is a little unorthodox. And when you can consistently run the ball well, it forces defenses to change it up and to alter their game plan. And as much as I think Darrell Henderson is doing a great job, I don't think they have that Cam Akers threat that they had last year in a solid back. And they're dropping back. The amount of times they throw versus running, it has to be bottom two with Philadelphia. They throw the ball so much, and it sometimes it just scares me because it's how many times are you going to drop back when you have a capable back that can get you some points?
Yeah. Yeah, they let Matt Stafford be in shotgun as much as he wants to be, right? He doesn't have to be under center, right? They don't feel like they have to prioritize the run game, right? It's a week-to-week basis because there are certain games where they've ran the ball extremely well. But again, it doesn't seem like it's the major strength of their team. So, yeah, I would have to talk myself into bringing in another running back. But to your point, I thought Darrell Henderson, he looks better in pass pro. If he could stay healthy, he's your running back one. And then Sony Michel puts you in a really good position having two guys. But I think you just have to ride Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers coming back. I mean, if you come back from an Achilles injury in 5 or 6 months, like it's an absolute miracle. McVay said he's currently running at 80% of his body weight at around 10 miles per hour pretty effortlessly right now, which not a doctor, not exactly sure what that means. 80% of his body weight. So he must be held up on one of those treadmills that's protecting his overall weight, which is crazy. But with the injury being in late July, a late January, February return is certainly possible. Back in 2012, just kind of looking back at Achilles injuries in general, Terrell Suggs, who's a much bigger, arguably more explosive player, came back from an Achilles injury in 5 months. And the game he came back against the Texans, he had 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 1 batted ball. So you'd have to legitimately rest him until the Super Bowl, or you have to kind of let him practice in a limited capacity over these 2 weeks, let him play in that game, and then let him continue his rehabilitation in the offseason. I don't think it's worth the risk bringing him back right now, because he's not going to be if you bring him back early, you risk him not being the player he was before their injury, which is already the risk with the Achilles injury. So he may be like, whatever, if I'm healthy, I could play, I'm going to play. But, the risk is you're at where Todd Gurley is right now at age 27. You don't have a team, you're a free agent, and you're just kind of going about life looking for a job. And nothing against Todd Gurley, but I mean, it's just that the injury history of a running back in this game, right? I think the average career of an NFL player is like 3.5 years. And I looked at that list Chris Paul Towers compiled, the list of running backs who suffered an Achilles injury, ruptured Achilles over the last 10 years or so. And I'm not going to go through it. The history is extremely bleak. But I don't know. I think modern medicine's pretty amazing, and everyone recovers a little bit differently. So if he's going to be active for the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl, he would be a great decoy in almost any capacity. But it would also cost them an active roster spot if they did, in fact, decide that they want to keep him active for one of those 2 games. So it's going to be something to monitor moving forward. If he can play, he can play. He's healthy. Get him on the field in some capacity. But I don't know. I think if you activate him, he'd be more of a decoy than anything else. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I just think I don't foresee that being a legitimate thing that happens in this universe where he comes back that fast. I know McVay wants to hype up his guy and whatnot, but that's just not something that would happen.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We don't know Cam that well, right? He's only been here for 1 year. But McVay said some crazy stuff. This seems like it's in the ballpark of crazy for him to come back in 5 or 6 months. But if he does, it'd be a good sign for the Rams moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's really all we got. Game was fantastic. Again, highly recommend SoFi Stadium to any fan that hasn't had a chance to go yet. But Nick and I, we had a great time. Great to meet some of you guys. Going to continue to try to go to as many games as possible and go to as many tailgates as possible and meet as many fans as we can. So it's been great. Nick, any sign-off, final words? Anything you want to get off your chest before we sign off?
I mean, I think, everything I planned on saying, I said. I stand by my takes, as always. Still think the Goff Rams would be in the exact same position as the Stafford Rams. I know you think that's a horrible take, but it's just my opinion.
It's a horrible take. Oh, I love it. It's a
hypothetical. Take. Nobody knows the real.
Nobody
answer.
knows, so you can kind of say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am so beat. It was a great weekend, but it was a very long and daunting weekend. And I just worked 2 12-hour shifts, and now I got to wake up at 4:00 to get to set at 5:30. So, hardest working man in show business, is it me? No, it's The Rock.
It's you.
It's The Rock.
And then it's The Rock, and then it's Mana, and then it's Terramana, and then it's me.
Nice.
I'm 5th. I like that one.
It was okay.
My first good one in 94 episodes.
Can you believe this episode's like an hour?
No. But if we keep talking, it'll be longer than an hour.
Well, people love it. People love our voices, Don't forget, my bookie, promo code LAFB, Goldenrod Brewery. Get some Rams House beer. The LAFB event, the 7th of November. I'll be there. slugging back some cold ones. It'll be a really fun time. Can't wait to go out there, meet you guys, and just enjoy. And I know it doesn't sound like I'm enjoying this and where we are as a team and the franchise. One, I'm very tired, and two, I respect what McVay and Kroenke and Snead and Stafford and Donald and all these guys are doing now. That is just like, no, like, let's not get excited and freak out. This is what's supposed to happen. And it's a great mentality to have, and use that in your everyday life and just keep rocking on. Horns up, baby.
Go out and win at all costs. That's all we got. Yeah, Nick, tickets to the event, and we'll talk to you guys in a couple days.
Peace out.
That's all we got. Peace.